Hey, you're about to listen to an older episode of the Volunteer Youth Worker podcast. This is a podcast that Sid Coop, Jason Ballard, and myself, Jeremy McDonald, started back in 2018 to answer the practical questions that you're asking in your youth ministry. But lots has changed since we started it in 2018. We've changed the name. We're doing new and different events and lots of other things. The thing that hasn't changed, though, is the content you're about to listen to, we think is still really valuable. But if you notice that some of the things we're talking about are obviously a little bit older, that is okay. You can always head to youthworker.community to stay up to date with what's happening currently right now here in 2024, and you can track along with us there. We'd love to see you. But enjoy this episode. Everyone, episode 110 of the Youth Ministry Team podcast. Welcome back. This is Jeremy and Sid introducing today's conversation. And Sid, last week, we had a few of our friends host the conversation for the Youth Ministry Team podcast. And today's no different. We got three phenomenal youth workers jumping in to lead the charge. And I can't wait to get this out to everybody.
Yeah, Jared, essentially this is like a podcast takeover, which is really cool for us to have some of our friends who are right like on the ground in ministry right across our country. Really cool. And they're wrestling with issues, they're talking about issues that they're dealing with right now within their ministry. So, on today's podcast, they're talking about how to ask good questions, maybe safe questions of the students that come into your ministry. And so it's really practical. It's going to be really on point and helpful for you as a youth worker to better disciple your kids next week. So we're excited about this podcast.
Yeah. So for Spencer, Kiara, they're going to introduce themselves, and just so grateful that we get to share that. Now, before we get into today's episode, want to also mention to all of you that the Coalition for Youth Ministry Excellence is a part of our family, the Youth Worker Community family, and we've got applications rolling in right now for this fall session. Sid, anything you want to say about the Coalition?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen. First of all, it's affordable and accessible. So we want you to be able to get your education while you're in your local context of doing ministry with a mentor in the context of a cohort. So it's very practical, hands-on, but it also doesn't put you in a position, Jer, where you're trying to figure out how to both do ministry with maybe a salary that is different than many other markets, do you know what I mean? Or different other experiences. While, so you can do ministry without worrying about a huge amount of debt as well, but you've been well equipped for it. So I'm really thrilled about it, Jared. People, you need to, if you're looking for your BA or your MA, come to our website, go to our website, the Coalition for Ministry Excellence, or just go to youthworker.community and hit the link for the Coalition. And we'd love to get you this next year. We'd love to have you in Kelowna, or if you're in Atlantic, Canada. And Jer, we are still in the conversation about possibly launching a satellite site in Ontario as well. So we're super excited about that. Come join us. We'd love to have you part of the community.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, let's jump into today's conversation on the Youth Ministry Team podcast.
Welcome to the Youth Ministry Team Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the team of volunteers. So this podcast is for the whole team. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you're asking so you can be encouraged and equipped as you head into your role in your youth ministry this week.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Youth Ministry Team podcast. We're going to have a really awesome conversation today between the three of us. We are three youth workers from across Canada. My name is Spencer Conway. I'm a youth pastor on the east coast of Canada. I serve at a church in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And just one kind of interesting thing about me, maybe my fellow Canadian youth workers can relate. I'm a massive fan of the Toronto Raptors. Who's up next?
I'll go next. My name is Allison, and I am from Winnipeg, Manitoba, right in the middle of the country. And I'm a girls ministry coordinator at a church there. And a fun fact about me is I am part of a international cheese club and have been for several years. So cheese is a big part of my life.
Cheese is way better than the Raptors. I'm all over that. My name is Kiara Moshansky, and I live in Sherwood Park, Alberta, which is right close to Edmonton. And I've worked with the youth at my church for the last 5 years. And a random fact about me is I can do a standing back tuck off of a picnic table.
Oh my goodness, I am very jealous.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to jump into our conversation today. We are having an important conversation around questions, the importance of asking questions in youth ministry and in your own discipleship process. And I'm really excited about this conversation for one reason in particular. I know for me in my journey, questions have helped me grow in my relationship with Jesus. And I also have seen that play out in students' lives in my youth ministry, that when students ask questions, it's an opportunity for them to explore, to dig deeper, and to grow. And so that's why I think that this conversation today is really important. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that thought actually. I love questions because they disarm people. And like you said, they invite so much depth. Like in my mind, a question just swings open the door for more conversation. And really, if we're not here to converse with our kids, what are we doing? And I also just love when you look through scripture that you see everywhere that Jesus boldly asked questions everywhere he went. He asked them to anyone he engaged with. He used them to challenge people, to convict people, to build relationship, to instill faith, to get people thinking. And I just love that. He also was always so genuinely curious and ridiculously humble. And so there was never that like awkward passive, like, how are you? In the hallway, as you're walking and you're like, you don't actually even care. You're not listening. And there's that weird engagement. Jesus' questions weren't like that. Like I imagine him looking him in the eye, asking these intentional questions, and people just turn around and respond. And so I think we have so much to learn from him, not only about how questions can bring up super quality conversation, but actually it can bring about life change.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when we ask questions, we show our posture as leaders for these kids and as youth workers, and it shows that we're open to engaging with them and we want to go on this journey of learning with them. I think for so many of us, we're conversational learners. We learn by talking about things, and when we talk about the things that are going on in our lives because we're prompted by a question, it gives us the opportunity for a bit more discovery and to make things more real at a deeper level in our personal lives. And quite frankly, people love talking about themselves. I think that rings true for most people. But when we ask questions as leaders and as youth workers, it takes us off of this like elevated platform of being kind of like this older leader in their life and brings you into a relationship. And through that process, it builds trust, which enables you to grow in relationship with them and to grow in our walks with God too.
Oh man, that is so good. Well, we're going to jump into this. I think that everybody's going to be really encouraged and have some great takeaways from this conversation. But hey, Kiara, would you mind giving us an idea of what we're going to be talking about specifically today?
Yeah, totally. So we're going to cover how we as youth workers can utilize questions at all levels of relationship with our youth. We chose 3 kind of buzzwords to help us, remember, but we have connect, converse, and cultivate. And these words kind of describe all the different levels of relationship that we have with our kids. So connect, the first time we connect with them, first time we meet a student, maybe even the second time we meet the same student, it's just our opportunity to build that initial foundation for the relationship. Then we have converse. So having conversations, building relationships with our students. We specifically are going to talk about how we can use conversation within the context of a larger small group environment. And then finally, cultivate. So going deeper with kids, we'll get more into what cultivate exactly means, but just the idea of digging it up, going deeper, planting seeds. And then we're not only just going to give you really practical questions you can use in all levels of your relationship with your students, we're actually going to talk to you about how you can get the confidence to ask those questions, because we might have the tools, but we need to be bold enough to use them.
That's good.
Okay, so let's start there. How can we as youth workers utilize questions in youth ministry context, specifically starting with like connecting, meeting new students?
So I'm going to jump in right off the bat and just say, I think one of the most important things you do the first time you connect with a student is remember their name. This is so crucial. I don't think I actually realized just how important names were in ministry until I was a senior cabin leader at a camp. And I would notice very pointedly which speakers took the time to not only learn the staff's names, but actually the kids' names. And since then, I've committed to learning every kid's name at any summer camp I speak at. And you just see their eyes light up at breakfast when you're like, hey, Jim, hey, whatever. And you're just flying the names. And the kids are like, whoa, like this person cares. And so I think it's just so simple. One word, their name. Now, I've heard the excuse, I've even made the excuse when I set on this journey to learn names that I'm bad at names. And I'm not going to invalidate arguments or memory skills. But if names don't stick with you naturally, make them. Come up with a method to memorize names. I know a youth pastor I work with has a note on his phone, and he just throws a kid's name in right when he meets them, not in front of them. Wait till they walk away. But he'll write, Bella, grade 6, pink glasses. And then immediately next week, he'll open up his note and be like, oh yeah, little blonde girl, pink glasses. Okay. And she walks in the door and he goes, hey, Bella. And the more we use it, the more the names are going to stick. So yeah, that's a good starting place when you're connecting with kids.
Love that. Yeah. I think another thing is just having these acronyms for asking questions of things to generate discussion based off, or, you look at a kid walks in and it's like, how do I start? Where do you start? Just to build a connection point. And so having an acronym in the back of your mind that can help trigger some of those things and questions that you can ask. So here's one we're going to throw out. Sid Coop. Just remember that name. School, interests, dreams, no, who's your family, friends, occupation. So do they have a job? What do they want to do? Occasions. Are there any holidays coming up? Or pets? Sid Coop. Good one to remember. But if that's a bit much for you, I can understand. There's a lot of letters going on. So we thought we'd just bring up the acronym that Sid Coop himself came up with. SAFE. It's much safer. S, school. A, activities. F, family. E, experiences. SAFE. So hopefully this little trick can help to give you some starting places for questions, right? What school? What grade? What's your favorite subject? Who's your favorite teacher? What do you do outside of school? Are you in cross-curricular activities? What's your family like? All these different questions and things that we can help to use to generate conversation when we first connect with a kid.
I love that. Jumping off of what you're saying, I think something that's so key to remember is that we want to avoid yes or no questions, right? We could easily be like, do you have siblings? And the awkward kid's like, yes. And then you're like, me too. Where we could instead be like, what does your family look like, right? Then we immediately find out about their parents, and they're actually going to be telling us really intimate details about their family structure and their home life, right? So it's within the first 5 minutes of meeting a kid, you instantly learn something so personal about them, which I think is a huge win.
That is awesome. Here is my secret go-to, I don't even know what I would call it, but this is my whole strategy whenever I meet a new kid at our youth ministry, or even if there's a kid in our youth ministry who's been coming for a couple weeks or even for more than a couple weeks. They might even be plugged in and I don't have the just best connection with them. I always try to position myself as the student and the student as the expert. And so I go into a conversation avoiding yes or no questions and answers. But really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to determine what is their passion point. What is something in their life that they're passionate about? And as soon as I discover something that they're passionate about, could be music, it could be sports, it could be anything, I start acting like I don't know anything about that. Even if I do, honestly, I just pretend like I'm a blank slate. I just need to learn about that thing that they're passionate about. And I ask them question after question after question about that. So for example, I had one student who had been coming to our youth ministry for a couple months, and I hadn't had the opportunity yet to really build a connection with him. But I had learned just through conversations and just even following him on social media that he played football. Well, I don't know anything about football. And so one night at youth group, it was just a natural opportunity as I was chatting with him to just start asking him all kinds of questions about football. Hey man, I heard that you played football. I don't know anything about that. Can you tell me, what are the rules of football? Well, all of a sudden, a kid who's really shy and normally would maybe feel a little bit awkward or not really know how to relate to me as an adult in that environment, his eyes just light up and he starts kind of explaining to me all the rules, all the positions, and I just start asking him question after question after question, and before I know it, I've connected with the student around one of their passion points, and we've had actually a really great, productive conversation, and there's a connection built. So next time you have a new student in your youth ministry, or if there's even a student that you haven't connected with in a while and you're trying to build on that, position yourself as the student and try to find their passion points so that you can position them as the expert, and just ask them a ton of questions about that. I think that this is probably a good time to transition into our next big piece of how questions often come up in youth ministry context. So let's talk a little bit about conversing, specifically within the context of the small group setting. Would you mind setting the stage for this a bit for us, Kiara?
Yeah, totally. So I think we all have been there, or maybe it's just me and I'm super awkward, but you sit down together with your small group, or for right now, a lot of us across Canada navigating COVID still, we're on screens. So you log on to Zoom and you just like stare at each other. And then someone awkwardly is like, so how was everyone's week? And, there's the odd like shrug beneath the hoodie, or like someone says good, and there's really no conversation that's actually spurred on from such a basic question, where really this initial gathering point is a great time for us to build community and to build a foundation to go deeper later on. So instead, I think that we should ask questions like, how are you feeling about blank? And insert a current reality for them. How are you feeling about the semester ending soon? How are you feeling about COVID dragging on? How are you guys feeling about your summer plans? What are you doing? Any of those types of questions you can just throw in, and you're immediately stepping into their day-to-day life and their reality. And something I love is if you've been journeying with your kids for a while, even now, it's March almost, right? So we've been journeying with these kids since the fall. We've been doing this type of thing for a while. And we should hopefully be in some form of relationship with our kids, that we're praying at the end, we're talking about their life. So follow up. If something was brought up in group context last week, turn, hey Spencer, how's your friend doing that we prayed for last week? Kara, how's your grandma? Is she on the mend? Yo guys, how did basketball go last week? Like, these are questions that show that we not only listened last week, but we actually continue to think about them and we still care. And so I think that's great. Now, some of you guys are listening are grade 7 leaders, and you're like, my kids don't talk about feelings. We can't go that deep yet. What am I supposed to do? I think you just need to have fun with it. Open it up. So, what's your thoughts on ketchup on craft dinner? Would you rather never eat your favorite food again, or only eat your favorite food again? Have you ever? And you just go into fun, silly questions, because there you can build laughter and you can build, whoa, me too moments. So if I'm like, I'm always a ketchup gal, and there's another one who's like, what? Me too. Instantly, we're friends who can eat ketchup on our craft dinner together. Like, it's all about just having fun together at the beginning of the night.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I posed to my kids yesterday. I was asking them, would you rather a really helpful monkey or a robot? And so they had to choose, like, would you rather? And so it was a very interesting discussion.
It's a robot, right? The right answer is robot, obviously.
I don't know. A monkey sounds pretty good. Yeah, one of my favorites.
So, Kara,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what do you do in your small group context? Like, after you ask the monkey and the robot question, where do you take them?
Yeah, one of my favorite things is the classic highs and lows. And in my context, we've started to adapt it and change it to different words that kind of make it a little twist. But so like happy and crappy, or hilltops and valleys, or our latest one is the sunshine, storm, and then we add like the weather forecast. So the weather forecast is like what's coming up next week for you, what's going on in your world in the days to come. But basically just kind of hitting on this idea of like, okay, let's share one moment that was really great for us this week, and one that was a little bit less great. And so we just spend time going around and making sure that everyone gets a chance to talk and to share the things that are going on in their life as they feel comfortable to express that. But one thing I love, and I've struggled with this, to go just that much deeper with my kids and trying to engage them beyond just like a math test mark to more of their spiritual walk and what's going on emotionally. And Jenny Allen, a writer and speaker, she came up with this question, or has recommended this question. And it's, instead of asking like highs and lows, you can ask and twist it and just go, what's one thing that's causing you anxiety? One thing in your life that's just making your heart feel anxious? And then on the flip side, what's one thing that's bringing you deep joy? And I think by asking this question, it allows for the opportunity to just go that much deeper. And it's kind of the same thing, but it's also different because it's more intentional. And it gives a little bit of a greater chance for some self-reflection and some conversation than as a group. Because then going back to what you were saying, Kiara, it's like that, whoa, me too. Okay, I've also been feeling stress about my exams or about like COVID and being isolated and all of these different things.
That's awesome. And I can imagine that those types of questions would probably have more potential to lead to more meaningful ministry moments, even prayer perhaps at the end. I know most youth leaders can probably relate to that awkward prayer request moment at the end of small group time when nobody apparently has any prayer requests and you're sitting there thinking like, really? Not again. That's happened to me on one too many occasions. But, I can't speak for anybody else other than myself, but from my youth ministry context and from my youth ministry experience, I know that every now and then there are youth ministry nights where the plan just kind of gets thrown in the trash and, we get a lot of snow out here on the far east coast of Canada. A lot of the times there might be snow nights where we decide to still do it, but we decide to still host youth group, but maybe the numbers are smaller. Like there's all kinds of various reasons as to why the plan might change. And all of a sudden in small groups, maybe you need a couple back pocket questions or ideas, a couple things that you can kind of rely on if the basic program or the basic plan isn't really there anymore. So what are some questions you guys would recommend to any youth worker who's listening just to be ready with for any and every situation they may find themselves in youth ministry? Maybe the small group guide just isn't going well,
Yeah, I've definitely been there where like the questions I've written for small group aren't going well. And you're like, oh my goodness.
Ditto.
If they're not going well
Ditto.
for me, then I am so sorry to everyone else. But I think the go-to question is like, what did you like and what didn't you like? What stood out and what kind of maybe like isn't totally sitting well with you, or you're not sure how to respond to it. And as we ask those questions, like, what did you like from what you heard? Or what did you like from what we just read or listened to? It gives an opportunity to discuss. It's also super open-ended. So it's not a yes or no that's going to shut down our conversation really quick. It gives an opportunity for lots of perspective and dialogue.
Right. Do you mean when you say that, like in the context of like if there was like a message in the night, like the youth pastor may have preached, or like a video that everybody was watching together?
Yeah, like I think it could really apply to a lot of situations. Like, so a good one then is a message that's maybe been spoken or a video that's been played. But you could also use it, I think, if you read something to the group, whether it's scripture or a book or a devotional. It really could apply to a lot of contexts.
That's good. I know that when we have conversations about the message that was preached or some video content that we're watching, and we're trying to kind of foray into some more spiritual questions, get them reflecting and contemplating their own relationship with God, I like to play devil's advocate sometimes. I wouldn't recommend, playing anyway, we just won't go there. This is the only time that playing devil's advocate is appropriate in a church conversation. No, but what I mean by that is obviously like a lot of church kids, and obviously we acknowledge that, there could be church kids in your youth ministry and there could be people who are non-churched in your youth ministry. For our context, we have a lot of church kids. And so I deal with a lot of students that just have learned to give the pat Christian religious answers, Jesus, read your Bible, pray more. And that's pretty much the depth of our conversation sometimes. But one of the great things that you can be prepared to do and have in your back pocket is to play devil's advocate and to probe them a bit, provoke them a bit. When I say provoke them, I don't mean like emotionally provoke them. I just mean ask probing questions that cause them to actually further reflect on what exactly it is they're trying to get at. So one of the questions that I'll often ask is, what do you mean by that? Can you explain a little bit further, of what you're trying to get at? I might ask them to try and provide a definition of a word that they're using so that I can understand and that the group can understand exactly what they're getting at. But I think playing devil's advocate can be an extremely helpful thing to help students learn to think a bit more critically about their faith, about their relationship with God, get a little bit deeper beyond the surface. What do you think, Kiara?
I actually love that you do that, Spencer. I am not the type to do that, but I love watching my leaders do that. I actually have a youth worker in particular in our ministry who always plays the devil's advocate. A kid will answer and he's like, "Okay, where'd you learn that? Your parents tell you that? Do you actually believe that yourself?" And he'll just like pick and pick and pick until he gets the foundation of like, okay, show me the good, show me the scripture that supports this belief you have. And I love it because he gets kids thinking about what they're thinking about and like why they actually believe it. So I love that you do that. I think that's such a great tool.
Can I just jump in
but for
one
those of us-
second? I think it's important to say too, though, that like depending on who you are in your youth ministry and like even what small group grade you lead, like you probably should take into account the age of your students. I would probably encourage more of that for like a high school setting than. I'm not saying that you shouldn't play devil's advocate for junior high students, but you probably should just be a little bit more thoughtful as to like what like level they're at in their like development. Anyway, continue. I thought I should just
that is a great coach. The leader I was talking about actually leads our grade 12s, and so that's super appropriate in saying that. And again, I mentioned I'm not a huge person to do that. And so instead, I go back to the part that I already shared, which is just talking about students' current reality. A couple months ago, I was sitting down, when we could meet in person, I was sitting down with a group of grade 9 girls, and they're quieter girls to begin with. And we're all just kind of sitting there quietly, once again, back to that awkward beginning. And I just, out of my back pocket, pulled the question of like, okay, let's talk about current realities, right? So let's start big. So think about, what are these kids hearing and seeing and experiencing around them and in social media? Like, what is their current reality? So the simple things like I said before, how are you feeling about your exam next week? What do you think about this? What's your guys' dialogue been around this trend? Like whatever it might be, start big. It doesn't have to be super personal. You're just inviting conversation about things that they're already talking about with their friends. So now we're inviting them to do it with us in a safe environment. And then we can slide into a little bit more personal questions, right? Like something as simple as like, how's your heart feel about this? Right? Like just getting right to the personal. Again, even simple things like, hey, I know this is going on in school. How can we be praying for you about it? Right? You just want to go super personal to the heart when you have the opportunity to with your kids right there. And a coach with that is it's important to know that we don't always have to add a question mark to the end of our question, right? Something that's so effective is asking a question out of a question. So even if a student gives a kind of blatant answer, oh, I'm a little afraid for my test, or I'm scared that COVID's still dragging on, or whatever it might be, our question back can be, tell me more about that. Fill me in on what happened yesterday that made you feel that way. We can just continue to invite things by layering questions of inquiry together so we can actually get to their heart and hear what's going on. So yeah, that's just a lot of back pocket questions that we can use. Hey guys.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I think one of the best parts of youth ministry is when those relationships are able to go beyond the youth night and we're able to have conversations with them about the things that they're wrestling with throughout the week and in that moment too, which brings us to this idea of cultivating questions that cultivate.
Yeah. So we chose the word cultivate because to cultivate something means to prepare or to like use the land for crops or gardening. I get an image of when my grandma would pull out her little pull rototiller and just go to town on her garden and just dig everything up, prepare the land for seeding. It's to develop something, right? And that's exactly what we're doing with students at this level of relationship. Okay, we've connected with them. We know their names. We know the basics of their life. We've had the safe conversations. Now we've conversed with them in a group setting and small group. And now we've gotten to the point where maybe after youth, they've grabbed us and been like, hey, can we meet and talk about such and such? Or we've reached out and been like, you shared this in group. Do you want to talk more about that? We should, hang out. This is the point where we're actually going deeper. We're planting seeds. We're cultivating.
Yeah. And I think this is my little disclaimer, just that this cultivating, it's so rich, but it doesn't happen in every conversation. And it happens in a season, and there might be many seeds that are planted first. There could only be a few seeds that are planted first. And so for those of you who are in a context of grade 7 boys who really can hardly sit still for a few minutes and just want to get back to playing Nerf or whatever they do, don't give up on them. Keep digging into them. Keep engaging with them, whether it's at a connect or a converse level, because that plants the seeds that enables us to get to that place later. And so my encouragement to those of you who feel like you can't get to the cultivate section right now, like just keep being faithful, keep showing up, talk about the shoes, talk about whatever they want to talk about. God will honor your obedience.
That's so good. And here would be my big tip that I would give to anybody who finds themselves in a position where a student does approach you and they have a question that's perhaps deeper, or you've initiated a conversation that's deeper. I would say you need to be intentional by trying to get the story behind the question first. Try to get to the heart of why they're asking the question to begin with. Get the broader context of how they even started becoming curious about the thing that they might be asking you about. You might consider saying something like this, that's a great question. What led you to the place where you started to get curious about that? And the reason I think that it's so important to get the story behind the question, or to get the broader context of why they're asking the question, is because this is going to help you approach this as a relational journey instead of just trying to find a quick pat answer. I had a office plant when I just recently moved into my new office, and honestly, I've never had to take care of a plant before, and so it may as well have not existed in my office. I think I watered it once. And as a result, one day I showed up and just noticed that the dead, dying plant that had been sitting on the back windowsill was gone. Somebody had taken it. And sometimes I think that we kind of, these deeper conversations, we approach it the way that I approach the plant in my office. We just water it once, and we think that everything's going to be fine just by having one initial conversation. But we have to understand that we need to approach these deeper issues that our students are wrestling with as a relational journey, as something, I really should have been watering that plant every single day. It's not just about one conversation, it's really about 1,000 conversations. It's about touching base and journeying with them. And Kiara, I think you had a really great story that kind of illustrated the impact that can happen when we take that kind of a relational journey. Would you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yeah, I would love to. So I had an old student come to me a number of years ago when she was in grade 12, and she was someone I've been kind of hanging out with. We were like just dipping our toes into the cultivate, area. We'd hung out, talked about shoes, talked about her truck, like we had done all the surface level stuff. And she just goes like, "Hey, Kiara, what does the Bible say about homosexuality?" And I realized in that moment, thank the Lord, that the next question I asked had the potential to shape the trajectory of our relationship. So rather than simply and solemnly being like, "Why?" I used a line actually super similar to yours, Spencer, where I said, like, "That's a lot to unpack. Do you mind sharing your heart behind that question?" And now, years later, we're actually still really good friends, and I'm continuing to journey with her through. Just last week, she texted me another question. How can sexuality and my relationship with Jesus coexist? Like, we're still wrestling through these questions together. And I think a big part of why I've been able to journey with her is I was way more interested in doing life with her than just answering her question. And in fact, I did not answer her initial question that day. And it's still something we continue to pick apart piece by piece. Because I'm so much more invested in actually doing life with her and discovering her heart behind the question and getting to care for her right there at its root. And so, yeah, I just want to say it again, Spencer, your question's so good. Like, what led you to a place where you were curious about that? That's such a good,
Yeah.
I love it. And evidence that it works, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, whether it's connecting with students on a first-time basis, whether it's trying to learn how to host conversations with them in small group, or cultivating these deeper conversations, I think some youth workers out there may just have a confidence problem. So how do we as youth workers gain the confidence to start asking these questions more and more?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is maybe it's a little cliche, but you just kind of start, even if it's awkward and maybe your question falls flat, that's okay. Ask another one. This idea that practice makes perfect. And so we can just choose one kid to start with, identify one child that's maybe super chatty, is maybe super easy to talk to. That's okay. Start with them, start talking, learn some good questions that work and maybe ones that don't work. But I would encourage you too, once you've done that, to try and seek out those kids who are by themselves, maybe who need more prompting, and try and work to engage those as with your questions.
Yeah, I love that. I actually totally use what you just said. I totally find the chatty kid. I'll like watch and kind of stand, and you'll see the like group of bubbly girls come in and they're just chit-chatting away, and I'm like, "Ooh, okay, I'm gonna go talk to them." And you just walk up, "What's your names? What school do you go to?" And just jump right into the questions. And what I love, set a goal. This is what I tell my leaders. Set a goal. Pick one kid. Learn one kid's name. Okay, next week, use their name and then pick two kids' names. And then I pick two kids' names. And within a month, they've learned over 10 kids' names and hopefully about their school and activity and families and experiences. Like, then they're actually getting to be in relationship with these kids, right? So I totally agree. Practice makes perfect. You will gain confidence. You'll walk away being like, I remembered a kid's name. And next week, you'll know you can do it again because you've already done it.
Yeah, and if you fumble through an awkward conversation with a student, because that'll happen. Oh my goodness, I have too many
We've all been
examples. Give yourself grace,
Yes.
There's always next week. Youth group comes around every single week. So come back next week and try again. I do think that before we finish things off, I'd love to recommend a great resource that has been helpful for me and many, many others in the youth ministry world concerning this conversation about asking questions in the context of youth ministry environments. And the resource is The Art of Group Talk. And it's put out by Orange. Orange is an awesome youth ministry resourcing group that you may be familiar with, perhaps not, but I would encourage everybody, if you're interested in trying to just take your conversation skills, your question asking skills to the next level, consider getting The Art of Group Talk put out by Orange. Now, we're just about done. I think that it would be important to leave everybody with an action step. So can you guys just share with us what's like maybe one action step that we could leave with all of our listeners today in light of our conversation?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to build off of what Kara said and just start. Pick one student. Even as you finish, you turn off this podcast, you walk away, ask Jesus, hey, what student am I supposed to engage with? He's good. He will reveal one to you. Even if it's that night when, they're coming through the door, they're logging on to Zoom. You see a face, pick that student and just start. And remember, there's the different levels of relationship for a reason. Connect, converse, cultivate. You don't got to start cultivating right away. You got to plant a foundation. You got to connect first. Just learn their name, learn the school they go to. Start there and just move along down the process and experience the richness that questions can bring. Like the question I'm asking you, where are you going to start? Who's the student you're going to start with? That's what I want you to walk away from this thinking about.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Man, I think this has been a very, very impactful conversation with you guys. What was your favorite part?
Honestly, reflecting on all the awkward conversations I've had and where I could have done better. When you were like, have grace, I was like, ooh, I've had many awkward conversations where honestly, my biggest downfall is I jump to cultivate too quick sometimes. Like I just jump in and I'm like, tell me about your heart here. And I'm like, ooh, I don't even know this kid's family. Like I got to back up, right? So just, learning from all of our own mistakes along the way and just deciding to do better and use questions in a safer way next week,
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, Kara, would you mind just jogging to our memory a few of the things that we need to remember before we close off our conversation for the day?
Yeah, so as we go to questions, as we start to engage with students, we'd encourage you 3 things. Connect, ask them questions as you meet them, try and engage them, be a face that they feel like they know when they walk in the door. Second, converse. Small group time, life group time, when you're sitting down with a group of kids, working towards questions that help to build relationships and engage in conversations, and even starting to move towards that critical thinking space. And lastly, to cultivate. So going deeper with students and helping them to reflect on their life and asking them questions that will probe them to that point so that we can lead students in discipleship.
That's awesome. And if you're lacking confidence, just start practicing. You are going to get better and better each and every week. We want to say a huge thank you to everybody who has taken the time to listen to this conversation, and we hope and pray that it has really helped you have a few more ideas that you can put into practice this coming week at your youth ministry. Hey, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review, because I am under the impression that when you leave a review, it really helps the podcast grow and reach more people. We would really appreciate that. We cannot wait to hear the next conversation that will be coming out from the Youth Ministry Team podcast. Have a great week, guys.
Well, there we go. That was great. So grateful for Spencer, for Kara, for Kiara, for sharing that with us all, and for summarizing it so well as well. Now, before we let everybody go, Sid, we want to let them know about today's other sponsor that has made this podcast possible, Trinity Western University, which we are just such great friends. We love those guys so much.
Yeah, they've been so wonderful, Jer. I love how they're really thinking hard about how to prepare the next generation of leaders to live out their faith in the marketplace. You know what I mean? And that's no small question. That's complex, and we love how they're working with it in really important ways. We also love, Jared, the leadership development that takes place on that campus, in the dorms, as well as in the classroom. So intentional. I know at my wife's camp, the camp that my wife works at, some of our best leaders are from Trinity Western University. So we so appreciate the work that they do. And you're going to want to take a look at that school if you're moving into post-secondary education.
Absolutely. As youth workers, it's always good to know what are some of those great options for students as they are graduating. And so Trinity Western is something you should familiarize yourself with. The link's in the show notes. Check it out. And we absolutely love what Trinity Western is up to these days. All right. We'll see you back here next week.